All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to the October 8th, 2024 Council meeting for the Village of Lytton. I'd like to take a moment to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones, and allow Council to begin the proceedings. Just to let you know, we are all being recorded and broadcasted on the Village of Lytton YouTube channel. If anyone is looking for a video recording of this meeting or a past meeting, you can go to the Village YouTube channel and watch it there. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting to order. I just have to unmute you, just one moment.
7 p.m. I want to acknowledge that we are meeting here this evening on the territory of the Etowah people. Council is here at the table tonight. Unfortunately, Councillor Toss wasn't able to join us. She had something she had to take off for, so there'll be just the four of us here this evening. But we also have, in accordance with our council procedure bylaw, we have Kathy Walter here as Deputy Corporate Officer, and Brian Baxter is joining us at the table tonight. We require a motion to adopt the agenda. So move. Thank you, Councillor Lightfoot, seconder. Sure. Thank you. All those in favor? And carried. Now the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of September 24th. Motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Seconder. Lightfoot. Councillor Lightfoot. Oh, okay. Were there any errors or omissions? Favor? Carried. Now the minutes of the public hearing that we held on that same evening. So moved. Thank you. Seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Carried. All right, we'll move right on to public comment. And I'm going to turn it back over to Corporate Officer Staroshenko.
Thank you, Your Worship. So members of the public are now invited to comment on matters related to the agenda. So if you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. You can find that by clicking reaction at the bottom of your screen and then click raise hand. And when it's your turn to speak, I'll read your name and you'll be asked to unmute yourself, and you'll get a pop-up on your screen asking you to unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak, and speakers are asked to please state and spell your name, say your address, and the agenda item that you're speaking to. So if anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. Okay, I see no one. I'll call for a second time. If anyone wishes to speak, please use the raise hand function. And Your Worship, there's no one online that wishes to speak. Is there anyone at Parish Hall that wishes to speak?
There's no public here tonight.
All right, thank you. That completes the public comment portion of the meeting. And back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Well, we'll move right on to item number 7, staff reports. And we have our CFO, Diane Mombercat, on to talk to item 7.1.1, reserves.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor, and good evening, everybody. This first item that I'm going to speak to this evening is about our reserve accounts, and we've been referring to this a number of times in our financial updates that we were going to look at the reserves and suggest some changes to it. So this report is the first report. I plan to come back with a second report with more sort of specific detail, but I wanted to take the opportunity first just to review the reserves that we have currently, make some recommendations for some changes to those, and highlight some areas where we potentially need a reserve that we don't currently have. I've also included in the report some information with respect to our deferred revenue accounts, and I'll explain a little later on how that kind of relates back to the reserves. So, you know, currently the Village of Lytton has a number of reserves that are established. We have a general reserve and an accumulated surplus. Those two items combined are what we would normally kind of talk about as our unrestricted funds. So that's just the culmination of years of surpluses in the financial statements, most recently due to various recovery funding, and I'll speak a little bit more about that later on. We have a capital reserve, which would have been established just to put money aside for future capital purchases. We have a stabilization reserve that was established back in 2016. We have a vehicle and equipment reserve, which again would be for the ultimate replacement of vehicles and equipment for the village. We have a legal and insurance reserve that was originally set up just to provide some funds in the event of an unexpected legal issue or insurance issue, that there wasn't, kind of current taxpayer dollars to fund. We have established a recovery operating reserve. This relates to the funding that the village has received from municipal affairs to supplement our operating budget over a number of years while the village undergoes the recovery from the fire in 2021. We then have a number of reserves that are required based on the agreements under which we receive the funding, or and in addition to that, a cemetery reserve. So we have the cemetery reserve, we have the gas tax reserve, which is actually called the Strategic Priorities Fund now, but everyone still refers to it as the gas tax reserve. We have a growing communities reserve, and we have a local government climate action program reserve. So those last three, the gas tax, growing communities, and local government climate action, when those funds were given to us, it was stipulated that any monies not spent needed to be put into a reserve. So we created a reserve for those amounts. Those reserves are all in what we call our general fund. We then have reserves as well in our water fund and our sewer fund. So in our water fund, we have an accumulated surplus of $253,000, and we have a general reserve of $55,000. So that would be more for capital replacement. And in the sewer fund, we have an accumulated deficit of $146,000 and a general reserve of $10,000. So if you think about reserve funds, they're basically savings accounts, and so they get established by council by bylaw, and then typically in the bylaw you would set out how funds get contributed and for what purposes funds can be withdrawn. And when you make those contributions and withdrawals, that's typically done with a council resolution. So it's quite a formal process, and it's an important tool for council to use to put money aside every year for large expenditures that might come down the road. So that's where like a capital reserve comes into place. If you need to buy a new fire truck, you don't want to tax the taxpayers in that 1 year, for the cost of a fire truck. You want to have saved some of it along the way, and you do that using a reserve fund. So it looks like, from what I've been able to see in the bylaws that establish these reserves, it looks like most of them were set up in 2016. So somebody obviously did this process then and looked at the various needs of the village at that time and established a number of reserves. I think at this point, there's a couple of them that we no longer require, and there's a couple of reserves that we do require that we don't have. So I would say at this time, given that we have a fairly large accumulated surplus of almost $4 million with some deductions that I'll speak about, I think we could remove the stabilization reserve and the legal and insurance reserve and roll those funds in to that larger reserve. As well, I think given the size of the village, we probably only need one capital reserve. We don't need to have a vehicle reserve separate from the capital reserve. So those are some of the recommendations that I'm making. Now, in addition to that, part of the reason why we have such a large accumulated surplus is because since the fire, we've received funding from a number of sources that, from an accounting perspective, when it comes into our financial statements as revenue, if we don't spend it, it goes into the accumulated surplus. So think about the donations. All of the donations that we have received since the fire have been recorded in the village's books of account as revenue. And then because we haven't spent those funds, because they're for specific purposes, that money has dropped and is included in that accumulated surplus. So what I'm recommending is that we set up a separate donations reserve, transfer those funds into it so we don't lose track of that obligation that we have to all those donors. That money cannot, based on the reasons for which it was given to us, that money cannot be used for general purposes. It needs to be used for the purposes that the donors stipulated. And so we can make sure that happens by putting it into a reserve fund. The second reserve that I believe we would really benefit by establishing would be an insurance reserve. And early on after the fire, our insurance company had fronted us quite a bit of money actually against our claim that would ultimately get paid out, because we needed the cash flow. We were, things were happening fast and there was a lot of expenses coming in. And so they fronted us some money. We actually, we need that. We need to spend that cash though on the replacement of the items that were insured. And so, for example, if we had $200,000 worth of contents insurance and they funded that cash to us early on, we still need to buy contents, right? And so again, when those insurance proceeds came in, they went into revenue and they dropped down to the accumulated surplus. So what we need to do is take the insurance monies that we've received and move those out of accumulated surplus into a reserve. Then this will give council a very clear picture of what's really unrestricted surplus, where right now we have some obligations attached to those funds. So I know that's a lot of information. It's probably like clear as mud, but it's really about trying to kind of get the right savings accounts sort of set up in our books so that we don't lose track of these funds that have been received that have obligations attached to them. Just highlighting very quickly in the water and sewer area, as I said at the beginning, the sewer fund has an accumulated deficit, of $146,000. What this means is that over time, over the years, the expenses of the sewer fund have been greater than the fees that we collect from property owners. And so the sewer fund is required to be a self-funding utility. We need to track everything separately, and we need to collect enough fees to cover the total expenses of the fund. So somewhere along the way, that kind of got out of sync, and we weren't charging enough. There's two ways to solve that problem. One is to charge higher fees and recover that deficit from the property owners. The other is to make a one-time transfer from the unrestricted fund to the sewer fund to establish it back to zero, and then start with an operating model where the annual fees cover the expenses. I'm not recommending that today. I'm just putting it out there. I think when we get a little bit further along our path of replacing sort of the major parts of the sewer system, we'll be in a better position to know our costs and establish the proper fees. And at that time, I think that would be the time to look at, okay, let's bring it to zero and let's start fresh moving forward. But that will come at a later time. We'll talk more about that. I just wanted to help you understand what that negative balance means. We don't have the same problem in the water fund. So just a very quick note about deferred revenue. So you remember at the beginning, I said that for the reserves, everything needs to be established by bylaw and ins and outs need to be done by council resolution. Deferred revenue is more of, I would say, sort of an accounting type of procedure where if you receive revenue in the year for a specific purpose and you haven't spent it all, if it rolls over the fiscal year end, it gets recorded as deferred revenue. That's the accounting treatment of it. So there's not a requirement to have these funds in reserve. So they're not in reserve, but they still need to be spent in the future for the purpose of which they were given. We only have a handful of them. We have we received a grant last year from Municipal Affairs for some council training and strategic planning that we didn't spend the whole thing, so we were able to carry that over. The Minister of Forestry provided a grant shortly after the fire that was spent 50% on operations and then 50% on economic development. We're spending some of those funds now on some projects. We have a community fund with the Interior the Interior Community Foundation, and we have a fund with them that's a healthcare related fund. And every year we are paid out the interest for that fund to be spent on future health related initiatives. We've been accumulating that over a number of years because, nothing has been happening recently with that. The sewer grant, we've talked about this many times before, the 4.4 million that we were provided by Municipal Affairs to match the federal and provincial grant for the rejuvenation of the sewer system. And then the final one is we had received a grant from EMCR for $3.4 million in 2023, and we have not spent all of it. So that's the remaining balance on that fund. So expenditures come and go out of the deferred numbers without council resolution. That's just part of our regular budgeting process. And so they're a bit less formal than the reserves. So I've made a number of recommendations in the report, and it's it's to come back with the bylaws and the changes that need to be done in order to implement those recommendations. So I'll leave it there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's put the recommended motion forward, and that was to receive this for information and to make these changes.
So moved, Lytton.
Thank you. A seconder.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Now, are there any questions for Diane? Can you remind me what stabilization reserve even is, or do you know?
Well, I looked it up. I looked up the bylaw today and read it. It doesn't actually say what it's for. I'm assuming that the stabilization reserve typically would be for a situation where, like, you have a really large snow year and your snow clearing bill is way beyond what you had planned, and instead of your tax rate is already set at that point, but instead of additional taxes, you would take that extra $30,000 out of the stabilization reserve. So it's to stabilize the taxes and not have taxes go up and down, with fluctuations in expenditures.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So there are no, Councillor Lightfoot.
I'm thinking back to what it might have been. And I think around that time, there was some revenue fluctuations with Aspen Planers. I think the revenue from that property was going to be substantially decreased. And so I think that's part of the reason it was established to mitigate that fluctuation in revenues.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
Well, and I just appreciate you being an accountant and understanding all of this, and if this makes your work easier and then our work easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions, all those in favor? And carried. Thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Now we move on to item number 7.2, which is Director of Development. And we have Corey on, don't we? Yes, we do. Excuse me, Corey. So Development Services Activity Report.
Activity report. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello, everyone. I haven't prepared any specific comments regarding the report. A lot of inquiries this month, not as many permits issued, but we're happy to bring you the statistics so that you can keep your finger on the pulse of the action.
Thank you for that. I know, I think we're getting familiar with these reports once a month, and I think we appreciate them. So thank you. So
Thank
we
you.
do have a motion to receive this we do need a motion to receive this for information.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. A seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Lightfoot.
I'm just looking at attachment 1, page 1 of attachment 1, and it said new inquiries. And you know, the Trans-Canada Highway, it's got such large numbers, but it's 48,075 or whatever. I'm just wondering, it says they needed to reach out to Fraser Valley Regional District. So I'm surprised someone, I'm just curious, is that accurate or would it be the TNRD?
Interesting question. That would have been something that Jack handled. I'm not familiar with the details of that, but I can certainly ask him and be sure that they got forwarded to the right direction.
Right.
Good point. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Carried. All right, we move right on to oh gosh, OCP 2024 Public Works Site. And is that you as well, Corey?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to put up my PowerPoint. At least that's my hope. There we go. Do you see my slides?
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Oh, I think I know why. Bear with me. Post disabled participant screening. I may need Lisa to put it up because it's, oh, there we go. Okay. Here we go.
That was
There
my
we-
fault.
That's okay. Okay. Does everything look good from that end now?
Yes, it looks good.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, I have just a few comments regarding this. I think everybody's probably well aware of the subject property at 30 Main Street, just north of the public works site. So in order to facilitate expansion of the existing site for, operational efficiency and whatnot, the village-owned property is being rezoned, and as a result of a change in the classification of the future land use, the official community plan is also being amended. So we're going from low density residential to public and institutional for the official community plan, and from the R1 low density residential zone to P1 public zone. So this is what the current OCP map looks like. Similarly, the current zoning map. And we are very much hoping that we can forward this to a public hearing to receive comments from the public. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. So we have two, actually, I see two recommended motions. One, one saying that we receive it for information, and then one suggesting that we give first, second, third readings. That is, never mind. Okay, I'm confused here. Not confused, I'm just mixed up. So we're going to receive this for information.
So
Thank you. I'm talking to myself. Seconder.
I'll second.
You're clarifying.
All right. So all those in favor?
Yes.
Carried. Thank you, Corey. We may have questions for you later.
Yes, I will be here. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to item number 7.3, fire and rescue. And we have Brian here tonight, the temporary fire hall spray form installation, and you have provided us a report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, presenting to you 4 quotes that we've received thus far for spray foam insulation of the temporary fire hall. The recommendation is that we proceed with Greenfoot Energy for a total of $35,710 to be funded by the temporary fire hall budget in the operating fund. That will be subject to scheduling and all things being as quoted in the original quote. Winter is coming, so timing is going to be important on this one.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a recommended motion here, to authorize the purchase of this. Would anyone like to make that motion?
Sure. I will.
Thank you, and a seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle. Questions for Brian? Comments for Brian? Councillor Lightfoot?
I don't know a lot about the R value and what the difference between 21 and 26 would be. Do you see it as minimal, or would it be more cost effective for heating in the future or cooling in the future if it was higher R value?
Given that this facility is a temporary facility,
Good.
I'm simply looking at the best bang for our buck for the shortest term. This isn't a product or an item that we'll be able to take with us. So it's not the lowest bid, but it's the lowest price at the highest R rating. Again, like I say, as long as they can do it for that, we'll proceed forward with it. There are some benefits to the other quotes as well, but a decision has to be made. Winter's coming.
No, good points. Thank you.
And this is the recommended one.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just is there any kind of fire rating with this stuff?
All these have a fire coded as per the property owner's request. So that's an additional cost. It's not broke out of $8,000 to $10,000.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, if there's no other questions, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Let's hope we can get on that. Yeah.
Thing the commission here, get going.
All right, now we move on to bylaws. Okay, so so the bylaw, Lytton Community Official Community Plan Amendment bylaw number 760. We have a recommendation, 2-part recommendation around first and second reading and public hearing. Would anyone like to put that forward?
Sure, I will move.
Thank you, and a seconder.
Lightfoot.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments regarding this? No, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We move on to zoning amendment bylaw 761. And again, it's a first and second readings and public hearing. Let's put that motion forward.
I'll make, well, yeah.
Councillor Lightfoot and a seconder would be Councillor. Are there any questions regarding this?
Look forward to all these public hearings.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. And we move on to item number 8.2, which is bylaws for adoption, which are ones we have seen in previous meetings. So the development approval procedure amendment bylaw, the variance delegation, a recommended motion here.
Moving to adopt.
Moving to adopt this one, and who would like to? Thank you, and a seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you. And I know we have talked about it before, but any further questions? No, all those in favor? Carried. Now we move to the fees and charges amendment bylaw.
So move Lightfoot.
Thank you, a seconder.
I'll second that one.
Thank you, and again, no further questions. All those in favor? Carried. So those have been adopted. So now we move on to correspondence, and we did receive one letter of correspondence from Corey Hebner. from the provincial director of child welfare. We have a recommended motion to receive this correspondence. Who would like to? That would be Councillor McCann and a seconder. Second.
Lightfoot.
Two of you. Lightfoot. Are there any discussion around this? No? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. All right, so now we move on to verbal reports. That would be me to start with. Yeah, so this is already the first week of October has gone by, believe it or not. Our last council meeting was at the end of September. So on September 27th, it was a Friday, and I attended the Truth and Reconciliation event at Lytton First Nation, wearing my orange shirt and walking in the parade there. It was really nice to be there with all of, well, not only community members, but all of the school children as well that joined in. It was a lovely event. Thursday, October the 3rd, I attended a TNRD meeting in Kamloops, and on the Friday, a committee of the whole meeting for TNRD as well. On Saturday, October the 5th, I met a group of, along with Councillor McCann, a group of over 30 university UBC students here from the Faculty of Forestry. They've been stopping here in Lytton for probably 25 years. Not the same kids because they've grown up and gone. In fact, not even the same instructor anymore, but they've been stopping here, and back in the day, they used to tour around some of the logging areas or the sawmill, or they do a tour through Whistler and around Lillooet and down. And they stopped here. They did last year as well. They came in a huge tour bus, which caught a lot of local people's attention. But they really appreciated learning about Lytton, about where we're at. They were very interested in sustainable building, fire resiliency, all of those. They have excellent questions. Many international students. It was a really informative, interesting day. Not only they learned from us, but I think we learned from them as well. Yeah, on October the 6th, last Sunday, I attended the all candidates meeting, and then today, this morning, the Spintland Park project ceremony, where I was asked to say a few words at that. So not as busy as busy of a 2 weeks as I've had in the past as far as events and such, but busy enough. So I will turn it over now to Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
So while the mayor wasn't real busy, she managed to send me off to a couple of things.
Yeah.
So I had a little uptick in my busyness, but not too bad. I was involved in meetings on September 26th with both school principals and the School District 74 admin regarding the community hub building. Then I met with the Chief Spintland Park Project Task Force and the WOAM project leaders. So the WOAM project started and is hosted at Kanakabar, and it kind of went into a quiet spell. And now they're looking at ways to complete that project and share the results of that. So it's finally drawing to its conclusion. It's nice to meet with those people again. I haven't seen them for a long time. On the 27th of September, I went with the mayor and we did a little walk from the Stein Valley School to the Battlefield Hall. And I must admit that it was pretty awesome to be walking along with every single child in the village of Lytton at the same time. It's not very often the kids all get together, and it was cool, wasn't it? It was nice to see them all together and having fun. And it was an interesting counterpoint with solemnness of the occasion with the energy of children, like just kind of makes an interesting balance. So that was nice to do. On the 30th and the 7th, I attended coffee with the mayor and council at the events at the hall here. October the 1st, I went on behalf of the mayor to the Lytton Lodge opening tour with the LFN Council. And I was really happy she delegated that to me because I've been curious as all heck about that. So that's the camp that's up at the airport. And they fed us lunch and it was a really nice lunch. And then took us on a tour of the rooms. And it was like being at college. It was like these little dorm rooms all came off this one hallway and there's a little room down here where you can kind of hang out. So it just reminded me very much of being back in college and staying in a dorm. I thought, well, they don't spend a lot of time there, so I guess it's okay, right? So that was a really nice experience to be able to see that and to know that that's actually open and happening. One thing about it is the kitchen is not available to public. And they don't make lunch. They make breakfast and dinner for the people who are paying to stay there. And it's a dry camp too. They told me that as well. On October the 3rd, there was the Chiefs Family Park Project has had several meetings because I think part of it was getting ready for today's event, but also what has been going on with that is that there's been the RFP process in place. So people are submitting proposals and seeing if they're on time and getting things added and taken out. And it's been quite an interesting process. And that little project, by golly, it just never stops changing. It's continuous. Even today, they were still changing it. So I carry on with that. On October 5th, the mayor and I went out to Nikaman and she had to leave. But at Nikaman, they had the bridge blessing. And so we were witness to a ceremony that you don't get to see very often. And so that was very cool. And after this ceremony, everybody went down to the new bridge. And there was this ribbon across the new bridge. And Chief Arlene went out with her scissors. And well, they all spoke first. And then she cut the ribbon and flung her hands up. And it just looked like, thank God it's over. They were all kind of, yeah. We're all looking forward to that being over so that we can all travel on again. But really, it's quite a different structure than what it's replacing. Like the old bridge was a straight on bridge, and this is a corner. Things are going right around. We were all taking bets on how many trucks are going to go off that one. But anyway, hopefully none. So then we went from there to I came and visited with the forestry people and just kind of tagged along. Mayor O'Connor basically carried that. And October 6th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce All Candidates meeting. And I think that was well done. I think it helped to hear the people and see the people that are running and have some sense of who is out there for office. And then today, of course, it was nice to have the people come and get the project started here for the park. I'm just really looking forward to that. And nice to have Brian's help with things like that. It's kind of knowing where it's going and being a point of contact. And I just wanted to say that over the past week, I've had the privilege of being witness to both a major project affecting Lytton community reaching its completion and another beginning after many years in progress. So the Nikaman Community Bridge Blessing and the Chief Spindler Park project are both, in my opinion, examples of communities working together to create improvements in the Lytton area. And what I noticed is both at the bridge and today here is like what you were saying earlier. Everybody's learning from each other and that mutual respect is being built. And it's really nice to see. That's my report. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle.
Nothing to report.
And Councillor Lightfoot.
Very little to report. I made it to coffee on Monday and to the Spindlum ceremony today, which was beautiful day, beautiful, sunny, and windy, of course. And it was good. It was excellent turnout.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of this regular council meeting. We're going to be moving into closed meeting. So thank you to those people that chose to come on and view us here rather than watch the the provincial debate tonight. But I'm going to turn it back over to Corporate Officer Storoshenko.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do need a motion to move into closed.
Thank you. So can we please have a motion made?
So moved Lightfoot.
Thank you, and a seconder.
Seconded.
Perfect. And all those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much. So that concludes the public portion of the October 8th regular council meeting. We ask that the public and staff please remove yourself from the meeting as we go into the closed session. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting and have a wonderful evening. And I invite council to take a short recess while I reset the meeting to closed.